May the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the life force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive. This episode of May the Life Force Be With You is brought to you by Moment Company and the Moment Pebble. The Moment Pebble is a beautiful, natural stone, light-guided breathing device and is a unique gift for someone who needs that gentle reminder to stop and take a break, to take moments throughout their busy day and to practice mindfulness. Just head over to momentcompany.co, that's momentcompany.co, and enter the code LIFEFORCE at checkout to receive an exclusive 10% podcast discount. Hello, I should say good morning and good evening and good afternoon wherever you're listening. Recording from today. It's all across the world again. And I just wanted to welcome you to an episode of May the Life Force Be With You. And just to set a little intention, let's gently go into this conversation today. And my invitation for anybody that's listening is to take from this conversation what inspires and intrigues you, and what doesn't resonate, leave behind. But most important, tread softly and reflect kindly on what we're about to share today and feel how it resonates and can be adapted and applicable into your everyday life force energy. And hi, I'm going to hand over now to Karila to welcome today's guest.
I am so happy and excited to be welcoming Prisca Andersen to May the Life Force Be With You. She's amazing. She's a sports and clinical massage therapist and a forest bathing guide. And she does martial arts. She's like multi-talented. She does martial arts and has worked in many, many different fields. But after burning out, she decided to start her own business in 2022 and move away from office jobs into something that felt more aligned. Although she does bring she does bring her left brain magic to me. To Starlight. She is the light left brain angel of the behind the scenes of Starlight, and so I cannot tell you how grateful I am that this woman is in my life. And yeah, she's incredible. It's an honor and a privilege to collaborate and work with her. And I have done your forest bathing, Prisca, more than once, and it's amazing. And so that is where I want to start. Tell us about forest bathing.
Thank you you're going to make me blush with that introduction. Thank you for the really kind words. Forest bathing, where do you even start? I guess for people who don't know what it is, it's a way of spending time in nature in a mindful way. So the way I do the practice is kind of the way I learned it was through a school that teaches a method that kind of originated from Japan in the 80s. And it's a long introduction. I usually give it on my walks. So to cut a long story short,
give it to us all. Give us the
So basically, so the story goes in the 1980s, Japan was experiencing a rise of its tech culture. So a lot of people moved away from their traditional rural settings into densely populated cities, and they started noticing an increase in stress-related illnesses, autoimmune diseases, and so on. And so the government financed some studies to find out what was going on. And there was this hypothesis floating around, according to which, people thought, oh, maybe it has something to do with moving out of the countryside and moving into cities. And so through these studies, they found what we all know intuitively, which is that spending time in nature is good for us. And so, for example, they found that spending even just 20 minutes in a forest lowers your blood pressure, it lowers your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. It increases the production of your natural killer cells, which is like the first line of defense of your immune system.
Do they know why it does all of this stuff? Is there science with it?
Well, so the studies observed like the relationship, and I think it's quite a relatively new branch of science. So there's studies coming out more and more. I think the leading hypothesis is that there is some compounds that are emitted by trees that interact with our immune system, and this is what causes all those effects. And that's why it's called forest bathing, because you bathe in the compounds essentially, even though you're not swimming. So yeah, with this data, they decided to kind of combine it with an attempt to protect the country's forests, and they set up official forest bathing trails. And it's now a preventative measure that's used in the healthcare system. So if people get a bit burnt out, they get prescribed a few days on a forest bathing trail. And there's about, I think, 60 trails in Japan.
Is that what happened to you? Did you get burnt out and prescribe yourself, or somebody prescribed you forest bathing?
No, I wish. No, it came to me. So like a lot of the things that I now do came to me through what I can only describe as magic. Yes. So yeah, I know it's like all the meaningful things or all the meaningful practices in my life magically appeared in my life. So yeah, I was in a job that I didn't particularly like, an office job. And I remember distinctly sitting down with a friend. It was during COVID, actually. So I was having a big old rant 2 meters apart on a park bench. And I was like, oh, I don't like this job. I don't know what I want to do. I want to do something with nature, but I don't know what. And she said the most Brighton thing you could say, which is, well, it just sounds like your guides need to be clearer with you. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't sure where that conversation was going. And she literally just said, we asked Prisca's guides to be clearer. And I think 2 days later, I was Googling, I think I literally Googled the word forest, because I was at that stage of lockdown where I was just Googling random words and seeing what would happen. And this forest bathing came up, and then, I entered the rabbit hole, and the more I read, the more I thought, oh my God, it just resonated with my whole body. And I thought there is a way of being in nature that really resonates with me. That is the way I spend time in nature, but you can help other people spend time in nature in that same way. So I looked into it and discovered there was a course, and the rest is history, as they say.
And I just want to say that, like, for anybody listening, it is, you go into the forest, but then there is like practices that you do that once you're with the group.
You're not running into the forest, whipping off your clothes and rubbing yourself up and down a tree.
No. No. I'm sure it would take off here.
It'd be so popular.
In all seriousness, I have this kind of obsession this year, and I didn't set goals. I'm not interested in that kind of thing this year. I'm softly moving into the year, but sequoia trees keep coming up, and I keep seeing them, and there's like signs for them. Like, I just keep seeing them in different places. I want to go and hug one of those trees. I want to go and hug a big, massive, I want to bathe in a big, massive tree this year. That is a goal for me. And I want to go and find, one of those ones that are like 2,000 years old and lie underneath it and feel the power of the tree.
Are you going to do it naked?
Well, you never know.
Clothes optional.
But isn't it funny how like trees are just like, I don't know, there is a calling. I'm a beach girl, 100%. I'm a beach girl, but there's something about the sequoia tree, there's forest that's just calling my name at the moment. And and so I understand like and so I'm intrigued when you said there's like actually a chemical reaction almost happening when you're in that environment that, you know, you can't help but have an impact when you're in that kind of nature setting. It's just, it blows my mind that it's that life force energy that you can't see. Energy is in everything, and we're bouncing up and down against it, whether we're naked or not. You're bouncing up and down that energy all the time. And it's just phenomenal that can have such a reaction and positivity. So how do people feel once they've been forest bathing? Because, you know, I'm going off in all kinds of directions now, but how do you feel once you've had that?
I mean, I think you feel great. I feel great. I hope everyone else feels great. But I mean, they usually look like they feel great. But yeah, I think it's just a container. You know, when you come on one of these sessions, it's just a space where you can just exist. And there's not many places like that anymore where people give you permission to just be. There's no time scale. There's no agenda. Just come and play in the forest, essentially. So like what I offer is invitations. That's what we call them in the practice. So they're optional doors you can walk through. But if you want to get distracted by the moss and stroke the moss for an hour and a half, also fine. And like, if you want to sit there and lean against a tree or hug a tree, fine. If you want to run around, you know, literally the sky's the limit. You can do what you want. But what the practice provides is a space where if you're not used to doing these things, you can start exploring them. So it's kind of using your senses as a gateway to then start connecting with your environment.
I have done forest bathing with you, and I love the suggestions that you give. I feel like like you say, they are so sensory. And there's one moment really profound for me in the last forest bathing we did, which was you told us to go into partners and experience the forest with our eyes closed. So our partner was leading us through the forest. And we were then, you know, your other senses kind of activate when your eyes are closed, because we're so visually dependent. And my partner took me to this dead tree, and like I could tell that it was dead, and I was touching it and I was smelling it, and I had this profound moment where I was like, I'm with this dead tree stump and I can't smell any death. I can only smell life. And suddenly I had this like amazing like realization that like there's loads of death in the forest, but you never smell death. You only smell life. Like you never smell what you smell in a fridge. The milk is going off, you know? And I was like, there's something so profound in that like even death is alive in the forest, you know, like the life, the mushrooms, the other things had just taken this dying tree stump. And I believe I couldn't smell death because the tree stump still had life force energy flowing through it. And suddenly I was like, death is the smell of no life force energy. And it was one of the most profound and life-changing moments of my life. And I never would have had that if I was walking through the forest with my eyes open. I never would have had that if I hadn't had this guy holding me, putting my nose into this dead tree stump. But it just made me think about all of the disease and all of the problems we have, and how much life force energy flowing through you is part of those things not happening. You know, the difference between the smell of a hospital, for example, and the smell of the forest was just so profound to me.
Well, it's beautiful. I didn't know it had such a deep impact. That's amazing.
It really did. I feel like the play is beautiful and it's amazing, but I think that these moments of true presence and mindfulness are also deeply philosophical, you know, like you really reconnect to the meaning of life through this play and this presence. And through these kind of offerings and suggestions that just allow people to kind of find their own map in the forest, I guess.
It's amazing how many people come to the events or like the walks and then say, you know, I walk through the woods all the time, I walk my dog, I come with my kids, but I never stop to be present in them. So you could be somewhere loads of times, but never observe your surroundings, which I think is quite important in these times.
Would you say that presence, do you think the senses are key to presence then?
Yes and no. So, like, as you know, I recently went to a Vipassana retreat and realized that what I thought mindfulness was isn't mindfulness at all. So the way I've been, well, my interpretation of mindfulness was that the senses are the gateway to presence. And so all of my forest bathing sessions were focused on that, using the senses for presence. And then during the Vipassana retreat, I learned that actually the senses are a distraction to presence. So maybe there's two different ways of understanding mindfulness. But, you know, during the Vipassana retreat, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat, if there's anyone listening who doesn't know, they teach you a method of meditation. And so the method is to observe everything that comes up. So, you know, if you have a thought, you just go thought, thought, thought until it dissipates. Memory comes up, you go memory, memory, memory. But then sensations will come up as you're breathing and you're just meant to let them go. So you're not using them as a gateway for presence. You are eliminating them to be fully present, if that makes sense. So I found that when, you know, in that situation, when I was completely eliminating all the senses, I was able to be so present that you almost enter. It was like one of the most psychedelic experiences of my life without having taken any psychoactive substances. You know, you become so suspended in time and space that's true mindfulness, I guess. So sorry, that was a very long-winded way to say, no, I don't know.
As you're speaking, I'm like, I feel like the senses might be the gateway to life force energy and participation or presence with something else. Whereas I feel like the mindfulness in Vipassana, not that I've done it, sounds like presence with soul or presence with, you know, not with life, but with the light or something beyond the 3D. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think you can access that through the senses. Like when I'm in the forest and I'm connecting on a sensory basis, you feel really connected to, if you want to call it source or the divine or whatever, Gaia, you know, you feel really connected to that. And I found the same feeling by eliminating the senses. So it was really interesting that you can get to life force through different gateways, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, at the beginning, before we started recording, you mentioned that we'd kind of taken you on a little bit of a path yourself, or a little bit of a mind map, which I love, about thinking about life force energy and the questions that we like to bring up. So I'm intrigued because Camilla mentioned martial arts at the very start, which is a big passion and practice of yours as well, because I feel like there's something in that being present, being connected to body. There's something beautiful in movement and mindfulness and movement in martial arts. So I'd love to touch on that. And I want to know if that's part of your mind map that you did, but maybe you could share some of the things that kind of circle the orbit of what life force means to you when we posed you that question ahead of today's podcast?
For sure, yeah. I was actually about to bring it up because, I sat down yesterday. I was like, okay, life force, I'll make a couple of notes, and then this is the result. It looks like some.
It is the ultimate rabbit hole. What the fuck is it?
I even wrote, what is reality here? Because it just sent me on a tangent.
Maybe Prisca, if it's for public consumption, we take a screenshot of that and we share it in the Life Force Cafe as a kind of thought starter for people to do a mind map, because I love that.
Can I read you some highlights?
Yes, read us the highlights.
Disembodied embodiment. Soap bubbles. I'm just reading random words. Sound spaceships. Spirit bullets. But I think, I boiled it down to one main thing. So life force is love. Life force is everything. We are everything. And love is the answer. And I think... Right, thank you for having me on the podcast.
No, it's beautiful. I love this concept that life force is love, because I do feel like when your life force is low, you don't feel as much joy de vivre for life. You don't feel you feel struggle for life, as opposed to when your life force is full, like when you've been forest bathing, for example, and you're all topped up. You feel so in love with life itself.
For sure.
So I agree with that. In the, what was it, space bullets?
Spirit bullets. So I'm touching on a lot of, I can't explain if you want, but I think the main thing, so I was trying to think, okay, what is life force? And I think it boils down to movement. So I thought life force is breath. And what is breath? Breath is essentially, if you break it down, taking in your surroundings and becoming part of your surroundings. So it's an exchange. And what happens when you breathe out, you create movement, right? And then I thought, what else is life force? So I was just thinking of things that make us feel like we're alive. So obviously, being half Italian, my first thought was food.
So Fiona's a Taurus too, by the way, Fiona. Me and Prisca, when we work together, have these moments of talking over food. We have these like Taurus Italian moments of just praying to food.
I always say that one of my traits with friends when we go away on holiday is talking about food whilst eating food. So you're kind of talking about your next meal and your previous meal while you're eating your meal. So life force definitely to me is connected to food. And there's so much love that you can share through food. There's so much community and collective that come from food. It can be joyful, it's ritual, it's ceremonial, it's celebration. So I'm deeply connected to food being part of, and it's fuel, right? It's fire. Without it, we don't function. It's what makes us operate. It's part of our operating system. You got to put the fuel in. So love and food. We are so Taurean.
Talking of burnout, actually, my guides say when you whack your spare battery, which is your cortisol adrenaline battery, the way to recover from that, there aren't many ways to recover that. That's like your emergency supply of energy for emergencies. And when you blast it, which we do a lot, which leads to burnout, the guides say there's only a few ways that you can repair it. And one of them is feasting. Not just eating, but feasting. And so they say that like our ancestors used to, like the Vikings, and like if you went to battle and did a load of cortisol adrenaline, whether you won or lost, you would feast, because it brings your life force energy back to you. And it's a specific type of eating that involves overeating or like eating loads, but also laughing and talking and celebrating and energizing the food. And so in terms of preventative of burnout, feasting is a really important part of life. That I also think we're having a burnout crisis because we've lost the art of feasting in our society.
I'm going to counter that and say we've lost the art of fasting as well.
We have.
Because we live in a comfort crisis. To again talk about the book that I'm reading right now, I will finish it, guys. And we don't know what it's like to have to be hungry, to really kind of listen to what our body needs. So instead of going, hey, it's 9 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock, I have to eat, it's like, well, do you? And we get really focused on what we're eating and fad diets, but we don't listen to when we're eating and why we're eating, most importantly. And I feel like life force can actually be also taken away by food, by mindlessness in our consumption of what we eat, but also why and when we eat as well. So I love the feast for kind of, bringing your energy back up and nourish, to me, that's nourishment. And it's, not thinking about it always being good and pure, but actually just what does my body need? But I think we've also lost the fast part of it, and we eat mindlessly without actually needing to eat, and it's not what our body needs. And then it's kind of struggling every day through the sluggish, waste machine, just to kind of go, God, stop filling me with stuff and give me a break, because, that's when you get renewed energy as well. I'm a big fast fan.
I love that you said that. I feel like, because what we were talking about, the forest and play, it's like just being in the routine of food is so unlife-giving. It's like what's coming out of this conversation to me is like your presence, just like your presence in the forest, and truly being in the kind of divine conversation is where you get your energy from. It's not just, like you say, the food you are eating. It is the way in which you are, it is the participation and engagement, as opposed to just mindlessly feeding yourself. And it's the same as mindlessly walking through a forest. It's like, can't forest bathe unless you're present in the forest. Like you can go through the motions and not receive the energy that is available to you, whether it is eating, walking in the forest, anything,
I think it's about acknowledging reciprocity. So like, it's not just about being present with the food or being present with the forest, or to me at least, it's about entering in a reciprocal relationship. So when I eat the food, I acknowledge all the energy that it has taken to grow the food, and how it's connected to, a wider
ecosystem,
I don't know, network of energy, whatever you want to call it. Which is the same thing I was mentioning with the breath. You're entering a relationship with your environment. So maybe that's life force reciprocity. I don't know. Which is movement in a way, movement of energy. So you see, it boils down to movement, I think. Because all the other, I've written like the other forms of movement, like dance is life force, feelings, I don't know why, but I feel like feelings is like a movement in your emotion, exactly. Music, obviously, sound waves, so there's something there, movement. And someone once told me a really wise sentence, which is, you can't find balance by standing still, which is so that's why I think life force is movement. You're always,
as you're saying this routine of eating, or this mindlessness, that is standing still, even though you are doing something. If you're just doing it with, change is movement, essentially. So like fasting, like Fiona says, is creating a change within the system of the body. It's like, to the body, repetition is stillness in a way. Does that make sense? It's like doing the same old thing is stillness, because the body can't be still because you die.
I just share with you a really like Fee's stupid moment, which I had never really realized until I started properly fasting a couple of years ago, is that breakfast is break fast. So it's supposed to be the meal that you have, you know, after sleep, and your body's rhythm and repairing of cells and rejuvenation all happens when we sleep and rest. So that first meal of the day is when you're breaking fast. So, you know, us eating so late at night and, you know, the habits that we've got into now that we've got, you know, 24/7 access to food means that we don't leave our bodies enough time before we have that break fast in the morning. There is no fast to break, but it just kind of blew my mind when I'm like, yeah, it's so obvious that that's what it stands for. It's not something that we talk about or we think that we just need to give our systems, our energy, our cells, like every part of us actually has the chance to just kind of take a break. Whew, recharge.
Can I please just honour that two Tauruses and Italian started talking about martial arts and started talking about food.
A law of physics can't be avoided. It'll all go back to food eventually.
Is there anything to say about martial arts and life for us?
Oh God, there's so much to say. I haven't even got to the bodywork part, which is like a massive part of my life. But yeah, martial arts, well, it's like repetition through movement. But it's the martial art I do is called Ninpo. So it's the traditional martial art from Japan, the ninja martial art from Japan.
I'm sure that'll be new to a lot of people. Ninpo.
Yeah, it's not a very well-known martial art, but it's a whole system of being. So a lot of martial arts end with in Japan, I'm talking about, end with the word do. So for example, judo, and do means way. But Ninpo, so it's a different, it's a character, means it's like a whole philosophy. So it's not just a way of learning certain things. It's also like a spiritual development system. And there's so many layers to it, but a lot of it is kind of like the Jedi Knights. Like, I'm not even joking, but it's about, you know, balance and honesty and being true to yourself and having a pure heart. And ideally, so it's all self-defense based, but if you're a really good martial artist, you never need to use martial arts because it's all about being so filled with love that you avoid conflict, essentially. It's like the ultimate paradox. Wow. And I've got this, I don't know where to start because there's a lot to explain, but basically there is what you call a grandmaster. So it's the guy at the head of the practice who has titles in like 30 or 45 different schools. Basically, the way the schools are organized is you've got different schools of martial arts, which were essentially just handed down from master to student. And these span, like the lineage is over 500 years old in a lot of these schools. So it's literally people would learn from their teacher and be handed the knowledge either orally or through certain scrolls. And so our grandmaster in our school has been granted grandmastership in a whole load of different schools, and they're just traditional, like different ways of different martial art practices, let's say. And so with this knowledge, he then built the syllabus that we learn. So it's just a way of getting you to learn isolated movements, and then you can learn the schools. So it's like a lifelong project, essentially. But every other year, he used to have these seminars where you could go and train with him. So he'd get all the dojos together from the whole world, whoever wanted to attend, obviously. And he'd teach you a specific school, which is called a Ryuha. And in 2018, I went to one of these seminars, which was in Barcelona. And, you know, he's got, like, he's probably the last ninja, you know, he's got this presence. You can feel his presence from outside the room kind of thing. And then at the end, he gives a talk. So it's like a 5-day thing. And you can ask him questions. So, you're learning about self-defense, and it's brutal stuff like how to break joints and stuff. And at the end, so this guy asked him, we spent all this time learning about physical self-defense, but have you got any advice about, psychic or emotional self-defense? And he just looked at him like super matter of fact and went like, shield of love. And like, I've just carried this, from the man who could kill you in 1,000 ways, for him to say shield of love is the way to move forwards in the world, just really resonated with me and kind of made me realize, right, this is the Jedi Academy. So, his advice to get through the world is just protect yourself with love. And I wanted to read, so I've got this book written by him where he talks about Ninpo, if it's okay to read a thing from it. So before every class, we say this prayer, which is Shikin Haramitsu Daikomyo. So I'm just going to read this passage because I think it's super beautiful. So Shikin Haramitsu Daikomyo, when translated into English, means the powerful light of wisdom. The word Shikin has 4 dimensions. The first dimension is a merciful heart expressing love for everything. Second is a sincere heart to follow what is right. Third is a heart in tune with natural order. Last is a heart dedicated to a chosen pursuit. Combined, these 4 elements produce great wisdom, haramitsu, yielding a powerful aura, daikomyo. The energy emitted is like a nuclear reaction, continuing forever. A ninja must penetrate the depths of knowledge to complete enlightenment. If you understand the deep meanings and pray throughout your life, the effect will be enormous. The light of mercy travels vertically. The light of the heart travels horizontally. With them, it can spin. And that is the heart of nature's cycle. So I find that, sorry, it's a lot to take in.
I love that. And I love that our heart actually has 4 compartments to it.
Yeah, I find it beautiful. Like when I first read that, I cried.
It's just like a true warrior is a warrior of peace.
Exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand about martial arts. Like a lot of people think martial arts is violent, but true martial arts is the most peaceful. It's the Jedi Knight Academy.
What I love about this is that there's an honoring of how strong you have to be a guardian of peace. How much, what's coming to me is like how much you have to be able to know that you have the power to destroy, that you have the power to be able to hold your power is how you become a guardian of peace. Because those states of love, even as you were saying them, they're so massive. Like, how do you hold that? Unless you know your own strength, unless you know your own sovereignty. And it's like to me, it's like the practice of learning to hold the power of your heart. That's what I get from that prayer. And I feel like, as always, we're running out of time and we can do so much more. But I feel like one of the things, just to bring it back to the beginning and forest bathing, is that one of the things I understand is that part of the reason you get life force energy from being in nature is because there's beings that embody their life force energy or embody their heart, because life force is love, as we've discussed. And it's like that then inspires us to re-embody, because law of inspiration is one of the nature laws. And when I think of nature and trees and like rocks and, mountains, the strength of these embodied beings to hold those 4 states of the heart constantly, that's warriors of peace, And so, yeah, I'm very moved by this conversation and this journey that we've just been on. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me on the on the podcast. If I look at the mind map, it's a little bit scary. Like we've only covered about that quadrant.
Life Force Cafe. Let's go deeper.
Please.
Come into the Life Force Cafe.
Yeah, I had this whole thing about wanting to talk about bodywork and like fascia and of how
on the Life Force Cafe. Let's take that.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Because fascia, I agree.
It's a whole other rabbit hole. I told you, it's a rabbit hole of rabbit holes.
It is the ultimate rabbit hole. It's the ultimate underwater.
Well, do you know where, just quickly, Karila, my mind went back just to go even more full circle to, because I did just quickly look up Ninpo, and the image that they have is from and we've mentioned this before, my favorite Batman Begins movie. And I remember I talked about how that kind of sense of life force and how Batman gets trained by Liam Neeson up a mountain. He looks like a Ninpo warrior. So once again, we're touching on themes that truly resonate, and maybe that's where it comes from. These things don't happen by accident, do they? It's that, and they were taught peaceful, yet it's the threat that I could kill you with my look, arm, pinky, breath, whatever it might be. They were trained to do. That's the peacekeeping force. So I love that. Oh my gosh, time just goes too quickly. But Karila, just to wrap up, go for it.
Who should we speak to next in this conversation?
So I did think about it, and it depends what direction you want to go in. So if you want to know more about Ninpo, I definitely recommend speaking to my teacher, because he's been doing it for 30, 40 years. He'll know a lot about life force. But then I also thought it'd be interesting to get like some indigenous perspectives on guardianship of the forests, this kind of thing. But I don't know anyone.
We're on it. I'm on it. I'm working my black book. Damon, we're on it. We're calling them in.
Yeah, so to get that kind of perspective of life force from people who protect the land, and then if you wanted to go into bodywork, which we didn't even get to, but I thought it'd be interesting to maybe get the Jing director.
Yes, good idea. You've given us 3 juicy.
And then but I've got more on the mind map, but I'll leave it at that. I think.
I think we definitely explore the mind map in a cafe session, and I would personally love you to come back and talk some more around bodywork at some time as well, because I've been really moved by what you've said today, this evening, this morning, depending on where you are, and some beautiful sentiment words that I'm going to take away and think about. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, and I can't wait to see that mind map close up.
Thank you both so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I've never been on a podcast before, so it's been a really new experience.
Well, and you should be on more, because you are you have brought through such. Your wisdom is sacred.
Oh, bless you.
Do you know what else though? Just to reflect, it's really important when we have these conversations. I feel that you can feel the life force coming through what we do, I hope. And I've got a big beaming grin on my face. So do Prisca and Karila. And I hope that everybody's listening, that it's just, because sometimes we can get too caught up in our own world and kind of, this is intended to be playful. It's intended to be thought-provoking, but not always so deeply navel-gazing and serious. Sometimes it's okay to have a laugh at this, be playful, kind of get out of the body, go strip off naked and hug a tree, as long as you don't get arrested. It's like,
I want to do naked forest bathing. I am serious. Prisca, I think there's something in this. I think it's going to be so popular in Brighton.
Can I leave you with the mind map quote that I wrote on the mind map? It's not my quote, but I was like, the mind map led me there, which is, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. And I think, Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
May the life force and the nakedness and the forest be with you.
Field of love, everyone.
Field of love.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, we've just created a new craze. What a lovely conversation. I enjoyed that so much.
Oh, I feel so enlivened. I mean, just the amount of laughter in that, the amount of laughter mixed with profound wisdom was just, to me, actually, it was like the essence, the spirit of forest bathing was in that conversation. Like, that's what I experienced when I forest bathed, this like play, and then this profoundness, and then this poetry and this peace. And yeah, it really felt like the spirit of forest bathing was brought in by the amazing Prisca. She's so special, hey?
Yeah, definitely. And as I say, I did kind of quickly look up Ninpo. I suggest everybody does as well, and look at the images of the warriors. It's proper Jedi, as she said, it's Jedi Knight training, and the fact that it's a lifelong practice and the discipline that goes into that, but the shield of love that goes around it, that it's not just about violence, is just, it's real dedication to have a focus on something like that I hugely admire. I really do. It's to be good at martial arts takes discipline. It takes being connected to breath, to your body, to, being able to be fully present. Like, that is something you have to be in the moment. Otherwise, someone will literally break your neck. So, but it comes from kindness and discipline.
That thing she read about the prayer, the four hearts, just was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life.
Wouldn't it be amazing to get the ninja warrior
Let's
himself?
Get the teacher. Let's get it.
That is our mission that we've chosen to accept.
We accept the Jedi mission. With food. Give us some food.
Or
let us pass.
Love it. Yeah, what a beautiful conversation. And as we said, we'll get Prisca on the Life Force Cafe to dive into bodywork and share with us her mind map and some of the other, for obviously we could see what she was showing us in bits, but there was literally a quarter of a page was the stuff that we actually touched on. So I can't wait to see the full universe that is Prisca's Life Force energy map.
And what a universe she is. She's amazing. I'm so, so glad she came on the show.
Me too. Well, thank you very much for bringing her on, Karila. And yeah, see you next time.
May the Life Force be with you. We hope this conversation has topped up your Life Force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the Life Force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the Life Force be with all of us.